We are living through digital evolution, not revolution. And this means that winners will be those who master the timeless fundamentals. So look back at marketing fundamentals. Human behavior hasn't changed, and history is repeating itself yet again. Hi, I'm Simon Cox, and this is SEO in 2026.
Simon, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
The web was a revolution. Everything since has been evolution, and it's been fast-paced. So the smartest strategy is to focus on what hasn't changed.
What hasn't changed?
Well, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. What I'm really talking about here is the core fundamentals of what we do. Stay still. There's a huge amount of noise going on at the moment, and it's been increasing this year in 2025. It'll be more so in 2026. There is a lot going on, so it's very, very difficult to focus on what we should be doing. So the best thing I think to do is step back and look at the fundamentals and go back to marketing fundamentals, not just SEO, but pure marketing fundamentals, and look at those brand and technical SEO, etc. Cool things that make a website work well, the content work well, etc.
You mentioned a couple of key items there in terms of fundamentals. So maybe let's zero in on them and just see precisely what you mean by that. So brand, why will that be the cornerstone of organic visibility?
For me, brand is something that never changes. It hasn't changed since brand really became something back in the 1870s when Bass produced their red triangle. That's when brand started.
First ever trademark in the UK.
Yeah, indeed. I'm sure brand was there before. So, when Queen Boudica invaded Roman London, there was a brand there. So it's that element of it. It's understand getting people's basic human behavior to understand things. You look back at human behavior, and that's where marketing comes from in the first place, is zeroing in on that, understanding how people behave. And then part of that is brand and brand recognition. If you trust something and you recognize it, you're going to trust it again. So building that brand will always be a key cornerstone to any commercial project, or etc., or proposition.
And has the way that building a good brand is done, has that changed much over the years?
Kind of swung around. I think that people come up with new ideas of selling brands, etc. So yeah, I would say different sorts of media have changed that. So when print came along in the newspapers, etc., again in the end of the 19th century, you had very complex adverts in those papers. But then when radio came along, same, TV came along, it all changed. And people, every time you get this sort of media change, and of course SEO, of course the internet, massive changes that are going on, people explore that and see what's the best possible thing to do. And we're going through that right at the moment. The internet started in the 80s, commercial internet started in the 80s, and then probably in the 90s, and in 2000s it really took off as after the dot-com bubble burst, and it really took off as a commercial proposition. And people have been optimizing that ever since. In the same way that TV adverts were optimized in the 70s and 80s, they got to the point, the TV adverts these days, I can't stand them. They're horrible, and I don't understand why they work. Back in the 70s and 80s, they were fantastic. But it's kind of like the same with the internet, where everybody's trying to get that added advantage. And it all comes back to basically trying to persuade people to do things that they didn't think they wanted to do in the first place, which is a key part of marketing.
And you also say that technical SEO is evolving, not vanishing. So what elements are evolving, and how is it evolving?
For us, on the internet, on the web, websites will be around for a long time. Things may change a little bit on how you get that content, etc., etc. But web pages are going to be around for ages. They really haven't changed right from the end of the 90s. As a consequence of building blocks on that to make them work, to make things be able to read them, machines be able to read them, etc., is basic technical SEO. That's not changing. It is getting more complex as we try and ensure that those sites are a bit readable, not just by humans, but by all sorts of different machines and crawlers out there. So with AI coming along, AI is not really crawling a huge amount at the moment, but it's really at its infancy. But all that needs to be taken into consideration, and it's not going to change. Technical SEO is going to be around all the time there's websites around. We've got to make them work.
Okay, got to make them work. And in terms of making them work for AI search engines, for example, have you seen a significant difference in terms of what needs to be done technically to a web page? Or are we just tweaking things just to make sure that the elements within our pages are being seen correctly?
Right now, there's a lot of hype around AI, of course, and it's quite possible we are about to go through an AI bubble and burst, and 2026 may be depression after that burst, and we'll see what comes out of it. Hopefully some good stuff coming out of it, like we did with the .com bubble. As far as right now with AI goes, it is changing so fast that nobody can keep up with it. Small sites, maybe they can tweak stuff, and it's good to test bits and pieces. I've been testing all sorts of things, silly things mainly, but actually following what people are saying, there's a lot of grifts going on out there, people just chucking out ideas and things and seeing if they work, mainly to sell courses and booklets and ideas and stuff. But when it comes back to proper marketing, etc., you've got to stand back and just watch all this stuff float past you, because it's no point in jumping. If you've got a big site and you jump on a particular course that people are saying, like chunk all your content. If you've got a 1 million page site, it's going to take you months and months and months to do that. But chunking itself, and I've heard this phrase a few times recently, is chunking not just paragraphs of content, which is in context? Shouldn't we be writing our content like that in the first place anyway? Yes, we should. So it's come back to Cindy Crumb's Fraggles many, many years ago. Nothing's new. History repeats itself.
I don't think I can let your phrase go, I've been testing silly things. How do you know, how does an SEO know if they've been testing silly things, and how should they stop doing that?
How should they start doing it or stop doing it? The way I test silly things is I just, an idea will come to me and say, oh, I haven't tried that. So I'll build a web page, I'll build a website, silly little websites, and I'll just say silly little things. So the websites that don't do anything in particular. I have one, I was watching a TV program, Countdown Does Cats, whatever it was called. Anyway, Susie Dent said a word, latibulate. I made a website called latibulate.com. It's there. Every now and again, it gets a massive spike as latibulate comes up some newspaper's crossword. That's it. That's the only time it ever gets hit. But I try things on that. I've tried sticking AI content in there, I've written AI poems. Just try them and see if they get indexed. That's a good example. Or they get thrown out as being AI written content. They got indexed. There's nothing wrong with it. They're quite good. There's a haiku in there and other poems, etc. On another one, I've got Nutty Slack, about Nutty Slack Coal, and stuff like that. But then again, I've just literally this week built a web page on my personal site, which I made up a village, built an AI image for that village, and got a load of content in there. I made up a silly village name, and what I'm testing here is whether I've let Google index that page, and I've shut everything else out. And I want to see where that content appears in the AI results when I go and search for it in AI. I'm going to give it a couple of weeks and see if I can get any of the AI tools to actually come back with the content from that. And I've already tested it, and I already know that one particular AI tool has come back with it, which I know it means it's scraping Google's content, but we know that already. And that's a whole little process. I just silly little tests like that just to see what's going on.
Well, maybe appears silly on the face of it, but there's certainly a method in so-called madness. But do you think that SEOs within maybe large agencies should be doing this as well, conducting their own little tests in terms of you're producing their own hypothesis and then just getting going? Maybe this piece of content going there, and have their own personal experience of doing that.
When they've got time, yes, that's not normal business practice to be doing that all day long like I do. But certainly they should be doing that. And with an agency, they'll have lots of different sizes of business and different business requirements, etc. And it's worth going out and building little test sites or pages or hiding pages on a client site and just doing those little tests, etc. With client's permission, of course. So I would, if I was working in an agency, do exactly that.
You also say that SEO is increasingly multidisciplinary. So what do you mean by that, and what does that actually mean?
Well, that really comes back to I call myself a technical SEO, but really I'm a webmaster. And because that's an age thing. I've been around since the 90s doing web stuff. And when we get clients on, I'm there to do the technical SEO. I end up doing all sorts of other things, security, bits and pieces. And I think, especially in technical SEOs, we get involved in a lot of stuff that isn't really SEO, but kind of allied to it. I've got a developer hat as well. I develop websites, not to the same quality as a pure developer, but I know a lot, and I'll go in and fix issues on people's websites that developers really should be fixing rather than an SEO. It is multidisciplinary, and I think if you're in content, you're writing content, you're doing brand stuff as well. You should be thinking about that, etc. So it encompasses also. It's not one single discipline. It's kind of touches a lot of things. It should do. If you're in a job where you are just doing one thing every day, you're like a factory worker, just put a lid on a tin and then do the next one. That's boring. That really is terribly boring. And you should be spreading your wings and learning all about the web, because then all that information comes back and you get a lot more experience, which helps you solve problems.
Webmaster, there's a blast from the past. I remember interacting on Webmaster World, the forums there as well, and also listening to Webmaster Radio. I'm not sure if you remember listening to that as well.
Oh, yes.
One other phrase that you've used that I'd like to just get a little bit more depth on is the SEO mindset's shifting from tactics to strategy. So what does that actually mean?
Again, that comes back to the speed of change at the moment, especially with AI. People trying all sorts of bits and pieces. It's really just tactics, and it comes back to what I was saying about the strategy, long-term strategy of more of a marketing thing. When you are running a website, you can't be chasing all the different things that everybody's saying right now, because there is so much. A couple of years ago, something might happen. Google might do something. Everybody goes, "Oh yeah, we maybe need to." Or say maybe 8 years ago, Google decided it was going to put meta descriptions out to 255 characters, and then a few months later it brought it back. But at that point, everybody thought, "Oh, let's have a go at that and see if we can get more content in there and actually bring more traffic in." But now it's not just Google; it's all the AIs and everything going on, and everybody really is trying to game them, trying to see what works. I say game them is probably the right word, but seeing what works, etc. So there's a lot going on. The thing is, if you find something and make it work, 4 weeks later, they'll change it.
And talking about finding something and making it works, another phrase of yours is the SEO Gold Rush is long over. What was the Gold Rush? When did it finish? And what does that mean for SEOs nowadays?
Really, the Gold Rush was finding things that you could get content that would bring traffic in, and then you can make money off it. And I'm really thinking building websites that then sent people onto other websites and you made a little bit of money off it. That was, I think, the Gold Rush days. Now it's much more business-like. And this is a reflection, a mirror of the .com bubble, when people just went and built all sorts of ridiculous things with money that they got from wherever and couldn't make a profit, and the thing fell to pieces. And I think it's going to happen again with the AI industry. It's all going to collapse soon. When the money runs out, etc. So I've completely forgotten what I was saying.
Well, it's in relation to the Gold Rush, possibly.
Oh, the Gold Rush, yes. If you're selling picks, that's the thing to do. Don't go looking for gold. Sell picks to people. That was the classic thing with the Gold Rush. The people that made the money out of it were selling picks to people that were looking for gold. And I think it's very much that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not the key takeaway. So what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Right. My key takeaway today is we are living through digital evolution, not revolution. And this means that winners will be those who master timeless fundamentals. So look back at marketing fundamentals. Human behavior hasn't changed, and history is repeating itself yet again.
Simon Cox is a technical SEO consultant at Cox & Co Creative. Find out more over at simoncox.com. Simon, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Pleasure.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.